The gentleman from California is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and the gentleman makes a very good point. Are we here condemning two sheriffs that got shot while sitting in their car from California? No. Are we here of the innocent lives that are being killed night after night, Chicago or other cities? No. Are we here in the last hours before this body rushes to the airport to leave to debate the help that we need for COVID for those who are unemployed, or the small businesses that are going to continue to lay somebody off, or whether they can survive the next day, or whether the schools will have the resources they need or the states? No, we're not doing that. We're not doing any of that. But I'll make this one promise to you. If the majority was on the other side, we would have already done that. Madam Speaker, Democrats are neglecting the real issues. Month after month, they have refused to end our dependence on China, or even acknowledge that the Chinese Communist Party is a national security threat. I've read it in the paper. We've heard it out in the public domain that the Communist Chinese Party wants to influence the election even. They've picked a side. Now, in January, Democrats were too busy impeaching the president to pay attention to what was happening in Wuhan. There's a common denominator here. Let's just go through the calendar. In January, too busy with impeaching. In February, they backed out of what should have been a bipartisan China task force. They actually said yes. The Washington Post actually had the article written. The members were already chosen, but the hour came. The Democrats thought that was wrong. Then let's move to May. Speaker Pelosi said focusing on China is a diversion. I look forward to hearing what the Speaker says about this resolution. Is that a diversion from solving the COVID relief that we need? In June, the Chairman Smith of Armed Services said on this very floor, just over at that mic, he said this about China. It's not actually their job to tell the American people about the coronavirus. Seriously? Those were the words that were spoken by the chair of the armed services. In July, Chairman Schiff, remember who he is and what role he has. He is the chairman of the Intel Committee. He said it was an escalation for the Trump administration to close down a Chinese consulate that was, according to the Secretary of State, the hub of spying and IP theft in Houston. He was the only one who thought that. And now today, while Democrats deny the real threat of communist China, they are delaying a coronavirus relief package because they despise the president. I heard a member here, Madam Speaker, said, we're adults, so we think differently. You know what adults do? They give adult supervision, and they focus on things that are important. We only have a few hours left before people leave. I know Madam Speaker told us before August, we will not leave unless we get a COVID relief package. I'm not sure if I should believe her then or believe her now, because I know people are going to leave in a few short hours. I know, as the majority, you have the power to schedule what comes to the floor. That was one of my jobs. So this is what they picked? This is what we're doing? Seriously? My question to the Democrats is simple. Is debating a non-binding resolution the best use of our hour? Apparently, you've made that decision. You thought long and hard, long before we came to this moment in time. You spent hours on this. I will promise you this. There is no kitchen in America that thinks this is the priority. What makes today's resolution so harmful is it does not stop discrimination. It simply spreads disinformation. At the heart of this resolution is an absurd notion that referring to the virus as a Wuhan virus or the China virus is the same as contributing to violence against Asian Americans, which I will tell you nobody on this side of the aisle supports. In fact, we've heard time and again, I just heard from my colleague on the other side, the Democrat-led Foreign Affairs Committee held a hearing titled "The Wuhan Coronavirus" in February. Should we put an ethics complaint? Are Democrats saying that their own committee members are encouraging discrimination against Asian Americans? Likewise, CNN, The Washington Post, NPR, The Guardian, all other major media outlets were referring to COVID-19 as the Wuhan coronavirus, long before most Americans knew what it was. Now let's put this by contrast. Because you're wasting our time, you're spending hours on it, you think it's the most important thing when someone's sitting there in the unemployment line or a small business is questioning whether they could stay open. So let's take this moment in time on this floor talking about it. Republicans condemn crime and discrimination in all forms. Listen to what the president said in March. Spreading the virus is not the fault of any one shape or form. But I guess you can't take his word for it. So let's waste another hour on this floor on a non-binding resolution. Madam Speaker, I wonder, because every member that comes here works hard to get here. I wonder the number of times members in a debate said they would take their time to have non-binding resolutions on the floor. I wonder the number of promises they made. Because I listened, Madam Speaker, to the speaker up there when I handed her the gavel on what they said they would focus on. I spent a lot of time trying to wonder what one problem this Democrat majority has solved. I have actually asked Democrats, name me one that you solved. I haven't read a tweet from probably the most prominent of the new party's chief of staff. They had the same question. They couldn't answer it. The president's words express what every good and decent American has known from the beginning. Asian Americans are not responsible for COVID-19. Let me be very clear. Let me state that again. The president's words express what every good and decent American has known from the beginning. Asian Americans are not responsible for COVID-19. Now let me tell you what everything else every American understands. We have an economic problem. We have people unemployed. We have small businesses questioning whether they can stay open. We have schools that are wondering, could they have the money to be able to open again? But you chose an hour of this time on the last day before we leave to debate a non-binding resolution. Congratulations. Well done. You fought hard for a majority, and this is what you decided. Unfortunately, while Democrats waste an hour of the House time on this ridiculous resolution, the opportunity costs of the inaction are rising. And you know who's paying the price? The American people. For months, every reasonable American has understood that America must end our dependency on China. We must move our supply chain out of China for critical needs like medicine. Do you realize we don't make penicillin, we don't make vitamins here? Personal protective equipment that we strive so hard to get, and technology. The American people want safety and security. They want to return to the American way of life. I'm not sure what this non-binding resolution does, but I know we've done a lot of them since you've taken the majority. Unfortunately, the Chinese Communist Party is trying to hack our vaccine research at this very moment. That is why I introduced legislation earlier this summer to sanction these cyber criminals. My bill had real consequences. And you know what's so unique? I introduced the bill because there were reports out there that Russia, China, Iran wanted to hack our universities, our businesses, to get that vaccine. Not to work with us, but to steal it. You know what happens when they do that? It slows the process down. You know what happens when it slows the process down? It takes longer before people have safe that we cure this virus. It's very interesting. That moment on the floor, the day after I introduced it, the FBI found 2 Chinese that were doing this, coming into our country, slowing the process down. And we had the opportunity to have a motion to recommit on this floor. Nobody in America thought that bill would be partisan. It would only sanction those people who were caught about right and wrong, about the safety, the security, a safe and effective vaccine being slowed down because of foreign country coming in. So as one, we had an opportunity to do something about it. You know what happened? The Democrats voted against it and defeated it. Not only did they defeat it, let me tell you again what the chairman of the Armed Services said about it. He stood up at that microphone. He literally said, it's not actually their job to tell the American people about the virus, referring to China, while they're hacking our own companies to provide a safe and effective vaccine. You wouldn't spend 1 minute on that, but you're spending an hour on this. Sadly, this is not an isolated incident. Madam Speaker, the majority won't even work with Republicans to protect our vaccine research from hackers. And they'll attack the very companies that are working around the clock to provide that safe and effective vaccine for the American people. They won't work with Republicans to store American manufacturing, to rebuild the American medical supply right here. But they'll call the House back into session to debate conspiracy theories about a post office. And while we were here in that emergency meeting, and Madam Speaker, I should probably talk about it because there were a lot of Democrats that didn't come, even though it was an emergency meeting called by the Speaker. I think it was 1/3 of all of them did not come. But while we were here, that one moment, the one opportunity that the Republicans had, we offered a motion to recommit, to put up funding for COVID relief. Once again, the Democrats did the exact same thing. Instead of stopping the hackers from China, what they said no to, instead of giving another COVID relief bill, that opportunity, because we were an emergency. It was the only time we were coming back. Even though, Madam Speaker, the Speaker said we would not leave, they voted it down. They voted it down. The only window that we had. They won't even work with Republicans on what was supposed to be a bipartisan China task force. But they wasted an hour on a non-binding resolution. Is this how you expect to manage the chamber? Is this why you took the majority? To waste the American people's time? Madam Speaker, it's time for us to stop acting like the House of Resolutions and start acting like the House of Representatives. Make no mistake, China aims to displace America as the world economic superpower. If they succeed, we will have more than viruses to worry about. The stakes are too high for petty partisanship. If we want safety, if we want independence, we know what we have to do. We have to rebuild our economy, bring back our supply chain, protect our vaccine research, and yes, end our dependency on China. Our president is doing that. House Republicans have made a commitment to America to do just that. We've done it time and again of bringing the idea to the floor. Unfortunately, the majority has thought otherwise. Madam Speaker, I make this promise to you. If the sides change, if we have the opportunity and the privilege to determine what comes to this floor, we will not waste America's time in a time of crisis. We will not tell people they will not leave and then let them go. We will not have members call it an emergency meeting and let them stay home. We believe Congress is essential. We believe the American public expect that. Madam Speaker, we have a COVID crisis. We have an economy crisis. We have a dependency on China that harms us when it comes to our health issues. We have hackers from foreign nations trying to slow a safe and effective vaccine. We have school kids that continue to learn from home, not in school. We have veterans who want to be able to pick their own doctors. We have an infrastructure that is crumbling, but a 5-year plan to make a difference. These are all the problems that if the majority would switch, would be addressed. But know today, on our last day this week, we will once again have a non-binding resolution. I hope you fought hard for this majority. I hope you spent a lot of time and a lot of hours deciding what would come to the floor. But if this is what it is, you have fallen well short of what America expects of this chambers. And I yield back.
Members are reminded to direct their comments to the chair. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker,